everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on episode 6 of Trigun, and I'm pretty excited. The last several episodes have been really good, but episode 5 was very good. I really liked episode 5, and I think a lot of people on Patreon were talking about how it really kind of kicks off the series, right? It feels like the first couple episodes just kind of set up a little bit with the lore, a little bit with Vash's character, but then the last episode really gets to the heart of Vash and that he's on a mission. I like that Nicholas commented in the Discord being like, yes, he's on a mission to find his actual insurance company. And I was like, he's with Mutual. Yeah, so it's funny, but yeah, he is on a mission, has something that he's after. We just don't know as the audience what that is yet. But it is nice to see that Vash has a goal in mind, and he's not just wandering aimlessly. There's something he's pursuing, and we have to figure out what it is. And then poor Meryl just had come to grips with the idea that he could be actually Vash the Stampede, and was like, this doesn't make sense. So I'm really excited because it seems from this point on, the story is going to pick up and get moving. Now that we know just enough about Vash to get into, we know enough about our main character that we know he's on a mission, and now maybe we can expand the lore, expand the world building, and get into the heart of what's going on. Or at least we think we can, right? But the only comments I really have is that Colt on YouTube was talking about how Millie's weapon is a cool subversion too, because you think back in episode 4 that Millie's weapon is going to have shoot all this stuff, and then it's really just used to pulverize people. So it was a good time, but I've really been enjoying Trigun. It's been a lot of fun. I'm very excited to see what's going to happen this episode. This is becoming one of those shows that I don't know if I'm going to be able to wait or if I'm going to want to watch ahead of time. I haven't decided yet. It's worked out where I kind of just get to watch on a weekly basis, but we may get to the point where I'm like, oh, well, I could watch ahead just to see what's going to happen, right? So we'll see, right? Before we start this episode, though, I wanted to give a quick shout over to Patreon. All of the patrons, I appreciate all the support on YouTube, obviously, but I also appreciate the support on Patreon for those who are able to give money to help me continue to do what I love doing, which is talk to you all about series like Trigun. And I want to give a special shout out to our philanthropy tier. They basically go above and beyond to give me extra each month. Going above and beyond their means. I'm so grateful for what you all do, but part of the stipulation of being in the philanthropy tier is that you get to break ties if we have them in the polls, and you get mentioned in videos like these. So I want to give a very special shout out to these wonderful individuals, to Edgar, to Dana, to Anime Annie, to Tyrone, to Nameless Monster, to Shimoyama, to Be Happy, to Translucent Men, to Eric Sunspots, and Alex Cornejo. You all are amazing. I'm so grateful for your support, and I cannot thank you all enough. So to everyone on Patreon and the philanthropy tier, all of my love. But yeah, the day is winding down, and I thought, what better way to round out the day than a good old episode of Trigun? Just seemed fitting, right? So I'm excited, y'all. I hope you all are too, but we're not going to waste any more time. We are going to dive into episode 6 of Trigun, and we are going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. Let me make sure all my stuff is synced up. Great, it is. And let's go. So this episode brought out a lot more with the lore, and now I have lots of questions. I was like, oh, so we're learning more about Vash. Oh, that's great. Okay, what? Is Vash immortal? Is he getting power from the plant and that's extending his life? Does he even know how this works? It doesn't seem like he knows how it works, but we've got lots of information, so we need to write this down. This seems like stuff that's going to be coming up in later episodes, but man. So the first thing we find out is that the Nebraska family had a $700,000 bounty on them, and that the entire city that needed the money ended up taking the bounty, which depends on how many people are in the city as to how much those people get per person. I guess the main thing was they were going to use a lot of the money to help get the engineers to come and fix the plant, but it almost seems like the engineers don't even know what the plant is. So I'm like, there's a lot of questions about this and how this supposed plant works and how it functions, but so yeah. And I like that it's the idea that the Nebraska, the professor and the son, professor, I like that it says Professor Nebraska and Nebraska Joseph. We don't actually get the professor's name, but we have one, I'm going to take a picture of this wanted poster because it's actually amazingly hilarious. And it says, one says Professor Nebraska, 6'3", which he did not look 6'3" in the episode, 62 PGS, whatever that is, and then he's aged 69. An old professor, looks like a scholar. Like, that's the description. And then Nebraska Joseph says height 34 feet 16 inches. If you were wondering, 9,995 PGS, and then age 19, macho. So man, just having his son late in life in his 50s, no big deal. Janet Jackson can do it. Why can't Professor Nebraska? I love that. And we cut to Vash. So something very important about Vash's character is that when they're like, well, we tried to kill you, why'd you help us? And he's like, well, we talked about this last reaction. It's because the people were desperate and they wanted the money. And Vash is like, hey, he's like, you guys need the money. And plus, he makes a very good excuse by saying, like, he's like, you guys are the ones who defeated, the Nebraska family, really. And he's like, I couldn't take $700,000 with me. It'd be a nuisance to a drifter like me. So that was a nice, easy way out of saying, oh, well, the money, I wouldn't need the money. It wouldn't do me any good anyway. And trying to, like, pass it off, right? He tries to pass it off very easily. He's like, now I can have all the salmon sandwiches I want. I love the old lady that's like, darn tootin'. Like, she's so cute. And I love Millie's like, I want salmon sandwiches too. Millie's just here for the food and the social aspect, right? But I cannot get over Meryl's, like, tsundere. Like, she is like a female version of Levi from Attack on Titan. She really is. If Levi was a little bit more uppity and a little bit more, like, tsundere in love with Vash. Like, right? I'm just like, just her expressions, like, some of her expressions look like Levi from Attack on Titan. I wonder if Isayama got any possible inspiration from Meryl from Trigun, and that I really would love it if that was the case. But I love that she's like, you need to get away from him because he is Vash the Stampede, She almost throws it in his face, like, to say, like, aren't you supposed to be this threat? Aren't you taking this seriously? We're following you around because you're causing all this damage. Can't you take that seriously? Like, she just throws it in his face, right? But it becomes more and more apparent as the show goes on that Meryl has a thing for Vash. She just doesn't want to acknowledge it. And she gets really jealous because Vash is, like, always around these big busty girls. And, girl, I hear you. I understand your struggles. And she's just like, I can't compete with these tall, busty girls. But she's like, they're just a dime a dozen. She's like, I'm Meryl, damn it. I love Meryl's, like, pseudo tsundere infatuation with Vash. She doesn't want to admit it. And she's like, why did it have to be him? I love it. I love Meryl to pieces. And I love her crush on Vash. That he's like, what are you talking about? Like, what's happening? I love their dynamic so much. It's wonderful. So the episode's called Lost July, which I was like, interestingly enough. And it's about a city called July. A city is named July, and it's about the fact that it was seemingly destroyed by Vash several years ago. We need to make note of that, right? But Meryl saying, like, make way for Vash. And she, like, talks him up, and Vash is just like, ugh, he's like, what are you doing, Meryl? He's like, why are you talking me up? He's like, I'm supposed to be a drifter. No one's supposed to know I'm here. And she's just drawing all this attention to him. And she's doing it half sarcastically to be like, you're supposed to be this big threat. Like, come on. What's the deal? I love it. And he's like, why? How long are you ladies going to, like, follow me? And Millie's like, always. And Vash is like, I got to get out of here. Vash is like, I don't want to be around you all. Not because he doesn't like Millie and Meryl, but because he doesn't want them to be liabilities in whatever damages he's causing, right? It's just, I absolutely love these boneheads. They are just absolutely wonderful. And of course, he, like, sees all the girls, and he's like, oh, hey, ladies. And then he's like, I can't go and flirt with girls as long as Meryl and Millie are there. And she's like, do you have any idea how much money the society lost because of you? The society. So I want to put some world building stuff up here that we get as we go, right? So we have the society. It is just labeled as such. And that could be a translation issue, but it is called as such, right? We know that there's towns with names, but the society is what Vash has cost all this money to. And I love that he just uses them as basically pincushions for the assassin's bullets. And he's like, look, for me, these girls aren't on the ball. And I love that moment where he's laughing and she's laughing too. And Meryl pulls out the guns. It is just the best. I would meme the shit out of that. I love Meryl to pieces. She's like, I cannot stand him. And that's when the sand steamer comes up. So we have this idea of the sand steamer. And what I like about that is that it is basically a like mode of transport of goods and services. So again, in this desert that they're at, the mode of transportation is this sand steamer. It reminds me a lot of the Jawa's little boat that they sail across on Tatooine as they go to see Luke and his family to sell trades and goods. Very reminiscent of that. Very Star Wars. But they have people aboard it that work there. Like the one boy, he like is trying to get off the ship. It makes you think that it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Even they're like, oh, look at all these commodities and goods. Because the boy on the ship is like, hey, can I come work for you and get off this ship? And the guy's like, no, I don't want a kid working for me. I need an adult. So it is very interesting. And they say it's like the biggest sand steamer they've seen. And then Vash disappears. But like instantly, this whole market sets up around it. It's all this trade and commerce. And it's like, it just comes to random cities and offers up all of these items and supplies. And it's very interesting to see how the trade, it's a nice little layer of world building that we get. And we get it's almost like an airport. They have the sign saying they're looking for the Canticle Technical Industrial Union to come and work on the engineering for the plant. That's what they're paying the money for. And I love that the one mayor is like, man, funny that hiring the Nebraska family to come and get Vash actually turned out to be a little secret gem in getting us this money to fix the plant. But we have all the engineers stepping out of the boat. I love the subversion that we have her come off the boat. And she's like decked out to the nines in this 90s, all the shoulder pads, the busty cutout, the choker, the bow tie earrings that are gold, the hat. It's very 90s, like fantasy, whimsical fashion. Not at all practical for cosplay, but you wish you could do it. And I love the subversion that she seems like the Southern Belle, but she's actually the chief engineer. I'm like, hell yes. I'm all about a subversion of expectations when it comes to characters like that, right? And immediately she's turning heads with her little parasol. This one guy that's the clown-looking guy that shows up that has he looks like a prototype for Shadow off Skate the Infinity, and he kind of runs into the bodyguard. And it was pretty obvious right off the bat that the bodyguard was the guy with all of the funky hairdo. And then we go to the plant. But I like that, it's somewhat of a mystery until we figure it out at the end. So we get this idea with the plant. But Vash is up at the top with the whiskey above the plant. And he pours the wild turkey beyond duplication. What a nice little plug for wild turkey. He pours it down the light bulb, which is interesting. And he pours it and it just shimmers, sparkles across, right? And then when he gets done, all he says is, "You were just tired." But what is that for? So we have questions, right? And the questions that we get is the pouring of the wild turkey. I'm assuming, was it the man? I don't think the bounty hunter guy died in the last episode. I don't think that was the case. So who is he saying was just tired? We don't know. We don't really get into that, and that's when she shows up. And of course, she says nobody knows anything about you. Wanted for the murder of Count Lebnant Vasquez. So we find out that Vash is wanted for murder. wanted for murder of the Count Lebnit Vasquez. We don't know who he is. We don't know anything about him. We just know Vash is wanted for murder, which is like, okay. So we do know officially why part of that bounty is that he may have killed a man, and the suspicion of Class G property damage. I don't even have to write that on my board. Like, we've seen it is Class G for ginormous property damage. Like, we have seen that right off the bat. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. And they'll pay $60 billion for you, dead or alive. And I love that shot of him just getting serious for a split second until he sees that it's this hot looking woman. And then he's like, oh, hey, you're really pretty. She's like, I know all about you, because she spent her whole life learning about him, right? And he's like, well, that makes it so much quicker. Let's get married right now. I'm like, Vash, honey, you need to stop thinking with your lower half. And then, of course, she, like, skips around him saying it's a wonderful proposal. And he's like, ain't it, though? Like, he tries to be so smooth. He's like, come on. And he's like, I can tell all on my own that you're a passerby who had her heart stolen by a peace-loving gunman who stands alone. I'm like, in other words, a fairy princess. I'm like, her name is Elizabeth, and no, I'm the chief engineer of the Marius Breskin Canticle Technical Industrial Union Work Dispatch Team. He's like, so you're like a fairy-like plant engineer. Oh my God. She's like, do you know anything about plants? So yes, we get some ideas with this. He's like, lost technology from over 100 years ago. Okay, so the plants. We talk about the plants. The plants are these giant light bulbs that we know nothing about, but we know that they are lost tech from 100 years ago. Oh, well, that's not cryptic at all. Just like lost tech from a century ago. No worries. It's fine. Like, and she says that's right. They are systems that can achieve production beyond theoretical law. So apparently they are seemingly able to produce unheard of amounts. But as we see, it seems really easy for them to overload and really easy for them to destroy everything around them. So it's like, okay, it seems like a little bit of a catch-22 there. They are leftovers from and this is in caps, Pandora's box we were given by God. That sounds dangerous and sounds like a bunch of creepiness that I'm not sure I'm ready for. So Pandora's box given by God. And they are leftovers. So we don't know exactly what this Pandora's box is. We don't know exactly what kind of Ark Covenant this is, but apparently the plants are like leftover technology from it. These are great questions. We are learning things about this series, and that allow you and I to exist in this poor environment. So curious. I'm so curious. I'm here to keep the hope alive. Okay. We don't know what else. And then he's like, and Vash is like, what about our marriage? She's like, I need you to do a job for me first. And then, of course, we get the one close-up of the robot. So, yeah, Meryl's just like, she's like, for crying out loud, where'd this guy go to? And then we see, like, I love that we get the cat cameo in the trash can. And then we find, I love that we also address that Meryl is in her 20s. We find that out. She's like, shut up. I don't want you talking about it. So, and then Vash says, I'd advise against it. She's really uptight. I love it. She's like, excuse me, Mr. Vash. And then he gets out of there as soon as he hears Vash. And that's when she sees the beautiful woman that has got her arm around Vash, who is blushing like crazy. And Meryl's like, well, who is this? Who is this? And I love that Millie's like, a total babe. And that's like, that's not what I meant, Millie. She's like, I asked him to protect me. And while I revise the plant's program system. And she's like, oh, come along, Spot. And of course, he's just like a dog, like just chasing after her and gets all up in her business because he's just infatuated with her. And I love that Meryl just can't stand it. She's like, aren't you glad we found him, ma'am? And she's like, nope, I don't want to follow him. I'm going to go write my reports. So yeah, she leaves him out, and then that's when the assassin shows up to take him on. and blows up the building. And Vash manages to get outside in the bed. I love that the man comes out in the pajamas and he's just like, oh my God, Vash. And she acknowledges that there was an assassin sent to get her. And it was almost like it was a test to see if he could protect her. But really, she's been trying to kill him the entire time, right? And she leaves him out in the cold, showing she has no interest in him whatsoever, right? I just love that Meryl's like, we leave him alone for 5 minutes and he causes this entire like fiasco for the insurance company. And she says the plant control uses a lot of technology and the knowledge to use it is in my head. So the question is, how did she find out this technology? Like, if she wandered to the desert, how'd she get this technology? I guess she just worked with people that showed her how to use it. But she's like, that doesn't mean I understand what the plant really is. That seems dangerous, right? So she knows, like, we have Elizabeth. And Elizabeth has learned, she's learned about how to run the plant, but doesn't know its full purpose. That seems problematic. Like, that could go wrong very quickly. And I was getting such Jurassic Park vibes watching this episode. I was just thinking of Malcolm in Jurassic Park, where he's like, you didn't stop to think, the whole time you were thinking of how you could do it, you didn't stop to think if you should do it. And it's like, yeah, you don't know how this plant works, but you're going to make it work anyway, even though you don't know what the ramifications of it are. Okay. And she's like, but you're here to help me. And I like that Meryl tries to talk to him, saying that, like, about the explosion and everything, and tries to, like, get him away. And he's like, oh, you got the wrong idea. She's like, it was your fault, wasn't it? And she's like, you cannot be allowed to be in a place like this. And Meryl tried to get him out, but then the girl, Elizabeth, had him come with her, and that's when she traps him in the area. She traps him there and has him come along saying, Spot, come with me. And Meryl's like, wait a minute. And he says, please understand. Even if I must shake you free. I love that he tears up. I have to go. And he just like saunters away. And Meryl's like, God, I hate him. Like, I just love that Meryl's like, are you kidding? The situation is dynamically wrong here. I love Meryl to pieces. But yes, that's when she traps him inside the generator. I was really wondering for a second. My thought was, I was like, are they gonna like, does she claims she knows everything about Vash. So my thought was, is she gonna like use him to like be fuel for this thing? And maybe she didn't realize that was the case, because some freaky stuff happens. Like, I thought she was gonna trap him in there. I didn't realize it was with the assassin. But then when he traps him, I love that he's like, it's a mystery to me how you got in here. And then he breaks open the mask and sees that he's like, oh wow, you're actually kind of cute. Okay. I know how you all know me. I'm a shipper and I read a lot of BL, but I will understand. My thing is, I won't make something into a BL unless, it's called for. And Vash, when the assassin first entered his bedroom, Vash was like, I don't want to sleep with men. And I was like, okay, we've established that Vash is a heterosexual male. He's just a hot-blooded heterosexual male that's into ladies. Totally fine. I can ship him with Meryl all day long. But then he looks at the guy and goes, oh, you're kind of cute. And I'm like, what are you doing, show? I mean, I guess a heterosexual guy can say that he's cute. It's fine. But I was like, all right, show, you're going to make this to where I cannot ship BL things with Vash. Fine. I'm okay with that. I'll just ship him with Meryl. And then that's when she traps him in the room. And oh my God, that look on her face. I was like, oh, it's very seductive in the moment. Just like she's cornered him. And Vash is like, well, what are we doing? And that's when she reveals, he's like, am I being punished? And she says, I want you to die. And he's like, well, are you after the reward? She says, no. I want you to die for 0104 AF. AF meaning something. July 21st at 2:06 a.m. Okay. That something has happened in 104. And 104, and he seems to maybe remember that. So 104 AF is when the story starts, is when she's talking about on July 21st, 104 AF. Did we ever get a start date for this series? Did we ever get a time that it started? Like, did that ever happen? I may have to go back and see and look real quick to episode 1 and see if we ever got anything with that. So I want to go back to the very beginning and see what we got here. Did we get anything from the start of the series? Did we get anything at all? I'm going to try to see if we got anything with Meryl and them showing up that would reveal like what, like a date, right? Like a start date or something that would happen. The rumor of the humanoid typhoon. Okay, because we have like the diner and everything, and them talking about it, and him going up that way. The update's at 1:30 p.m. And then I keep wanting to see that they would have a report, right? That they would be writing. Maybe she writes a report on here. Oh, maybe she'll say like a date and time. I keep wanting to see Meryl writing something. 40 aisles west of town, disaster report. We've determined blah, blah, blah. Back to Vash, the Vash hunt. This is going to be difficult. I don't think they give us a day or a time, which is so frustrating, right? Ugh. How sad. I was really hoping they would give us like a day or a year that this was happening so that we could figure out exactly how many years it's been since that occurred. But he remembers you transformed the third city, July, my hometown. So apparently there's like multiple cities, and this was the third city, her hometown, into a disaster area, into hell. And there's this big thing where there's this spiraling vortex, which is like, I don't know what kind of witchcraft you use. And I'm like, it sounds like an explosion of the plant, right? It seems like maybe the plant exploded, and that caused everything to go to hell for this town of 1.4 million. If Vash doesn't remember what happened, then there's no telling, right? Because he seems like he's an adult when this happens. So Vash is an adult when Elizabeth is 3, which seems over 20 years ago, or close to 20 years ago. It's at least, if she's at least 18, it's at least been 15 years, and Vash does not look like he's aged a day. So we don't know the age of Vash at all. My theory is if he's absorbing stuff, because it seems like he absorbs the radiation from the plant to stabilize it. If he's absorbing all this stuff, is this kind of like a Doctor Who scenario where he's like making himself live forever through this like energy he's getting from the plant? What is Vash? That's a really good question. What is he? Is he human? We don't know. But the idea is that Vash does not remember. He doesn't remember before the July explosion. He can't remember anything past that, but he did save the girl. So I don't know. I'm so curious. I'm like, we don't really get anything with his character as far as him remembering anything before that. There's no flashbacks on the screen or anything. It's just him. It's literally just him like protecting her against the sandstorms. But the crazy thing is she's like, you didn't kill anyone, but because the city was destroyed, 1.4 million people became homeless and destitute, and it caused a riot, and then people died. So she's like, even though you technically didn't kill anyone yourself, your actions or the actions surrounding you led to this big thing happening. So it's no wonder that he's been able to accumulate $60 billion worth of a bounty, because he's been around for so long. He's like a legend at this point, right? It's kind of amazing. But man, it sucks when you see like Elizabeth as a kid and her parents like dead on the ground. It's awful. And she just wanders through the desert, and she's just this little, they draw her so cute, but it's so like, it's so tragic and terrifying. And that's when she sees this man, and he reaches out this hand with like the bandages all around it. So like, is it before he like gets the metal hand or whatever he has? What? So interesting. And he like coughs as she comes up next to him. Huh. But she wants him to feel like the sadness that she felt with her family dying. And she asks him to die and repent. And Vash is just like, as he looks up, he sees the plant starting. He's like, what can I do? And that's when the plant's starting to get a little bit out of control. And they're like, fire, if it explodes, it's going to create this giant crater because it's too overpowered. And so she's the chief engineer, and her thing is she just tells everybody, let's just evacuate. I'm like, you're the chief engineer. But again, she doesn't know how things work. So it's like, was she really the chief engineer? Or did she just pretend to be that role and faked it till she made it so she could get to Vash? We don't know, right? But in any case, she decides not to fix the problem and instead blow up the city so that she can kill Vash. And she said he chose to stay behind. And the sad thing is that like Meryl like looks back like she wanted to stay behind too, but she didn't know what there was to do. And then like this giant ass like vortex opens up in front of the plant, which is crazy with the rainbow stuff. And Vash and like sees it. The plant is activated. He's like, did this woman leave me to die with him? That wasn't our deal. And then, but Vash like reaches up to get all the energy. Like, what is happening? I'm like, okay. We don't know what's going on, right? And it's like all the plant like lines up with this energy. I'm so curious because we get no explanation of this. The show is giving us all of the teasing. And they're like, what is he doing? And he absorbs all the energy. And then he comes out. And I was worried like that he was, going to be like radioactive and like about to blow and like trying to get past everybody to be like, let me get out of here and use up all this energy. But Meryl, of course, hides the fact that she was worried about him being like, oh, well, he just likes to scare people. I'm perfectly fine. I'm going to go write the report now. Like, to not let on that she was worried about him. But I love the effect. Because, again, this is a 90s anime. They don't have this crazy budget for animation. And so they try to use a lot of little practical effects, like the camera shaking in the last episode. And in this one, they have where the people are running by slowly, and she like puts the gun up next to his stomach, right? And it's meant to be in slow motion. They're just making the people in the background run slower to show that it's happening in like slow motion. And he says, I'm sorry I didn't die. I didn't want the city to go with me. And she's like, how dare you say that? Like, for you. And I love that she just has it pointed at her. I love that pose of them just like flushed next to each other. If you destroyed the plant, you'd be the same as me. She's like, I know that, but I didn't want to hear it from you. You who destroyed July. And I love these, like, I have no memory of that day before then. He's like, that ruined city and pile of debris, that was the first thing I ever saw. Which is kind of harrowing, right? That the first thing you witness as a full-grown adult that has no memory of your past is this destitute city that you've seemingly destroyed. I have no memory of anything before that, except memories of my childhood. So there's a big blank spot. He only remembers July's destruction and his childhood. But then there's a big gap. And we have nothing in between. Just his childhood and the destruction of July are like the first is the only thing. There's a big gap in his memories where he has amnesia and he doesn't know what's happened, which is interesting. And she's like, it wasn't you. And he's like, I don't know that. He's like, it could have very well been me that destroyed the city, but I don't know. And she's like, then why won't you let me have my revenge and blame you for it? And she like wants to fire the trigger, but then everybody's cheering his name and everything for saving the city. And she can't do it. She's like, why did it have to be you? Why did someone like you have to be Vash the Stampede? Why couldn't you be as awful as people say that you are? Why'd you have to be somebody to save the city? And I love this. And I love that he gives her this hug, right? And it's just like, Vash is so sweet. Like, and there's nothing, he's done like the flirting and stuff with her, but there's nothing with that hug. That hug is genuine and sincere. And he's like, I'm sorry. And that's when she realizes that he's the one with the bloodied up face and everything in the past that looked down at her when she was a kid. And she's like, it couldn't be the same man, but it is. But it is. And him like crying, like, I love a man who's sentimental. And Vash is like just shedding all these tears. She's like, it can't be. How is it you? She's like, that was nearly 20 years ago. But he's still here. And she just has like a breakdown moment, right? Where they both just cry. And then he leaves her. And just looking up at the sun, and that's it! So yeah, just, So, all of these questions now, like how that we get more with the plant, that it's some kind of foreign technology that maybe is tied to aliens, who knows? And Vash is not human. No, Vash is not human. He's not aging. He's able to absorb energy from the plant. Maybe he's human and he's an experiment. We don't know. But Vash is definitely not just a normal human being. No, there's something else to his character that we don't know yet. And I am so fascinated, y'all. So fascinated. I'm just like, oh my God. But yeah. So this episode was amazing for giving us just like little bits and pieces of lore, learning more about Vash. Vash is just a ladies' man. We're gonna give him that. I'm gonna not ship my BL shippings with Vash right now because he doesn't like to sleep with guys. We're fine with that. And I love Vash's character because he's so sentimental and sweet, but there's such a mystery about him. And now we're getting into like, what is his character about? And what is this deal? What is happening? And there's just so much left to go, right? And we're just now getting into the lore, and I'm super, super excited. So, in any case, I hope y'all, thank you for tolerating me playing with Huckleberry. I hope y'all enjoyed this reaction discussion. I'm so curious to know your thoughts down below, but I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I am super excited to see what else we're gonna get with Vash, the Stampede, and Trigun. Bye!